One day, while forgetting to order more Wiis for the UK, Mr. Bentendo stopped by the costume shop. Inside were all sorts of costumes, but one took his interest in particular, when suddenly, as if by magic, the shopkeeper appeared. "Ah, the solid snake, a classic, sir," said the shopkeeper. "I think I'll try this one on," said Mr. Bentendo, and so he stepped into the changing room and put on the costume, and then stepped through the door. "Ooh," thought Mr. Bentendo to himself, "it's very cold here. I wonder where I am." Wherever he was, it was cold, and full of soldiers. They were everywhere, marching around. Mr. Bentendo thought they looked very unfriendly, so he thought it best to avoid them, and kept out of harm's way. After a bit of sneaking around, he bumped into a rather strange man. He was an angry-looking old man as well, who was spinning a gun around in his hand. "I'm Revolver Ocelot," the man said. "I'm called that because I like rubbish Guy Ritchie films." Before Mr. Bentendo could say anything, Ocelot started shooting at him. Thankfully, an invisible ninja stopped Ocelot's carry-on by chopping his hand off. Mr. Bentendo would have thanked the ninja, but he had become distracted by a sickly old man who started giving Mr. Bentendo a 5-minute lecture about nuclear disarmament. And it was during this overly long piece of exposition that a guard saw Mr. Bentendo and sadly shot him in the head. After being shot, Mr. Bentendo woke up in what looked like an oil rig. While he was looking at the pretty seagulls, a strange young woman turned up. "Oh, hello, Ducky. I'm Raiden. I'm supposed to be sorting out this oil spill," which is actually the front for a terrorist plan to use a secret nuclear battle tank type thing to overthrow the US government, but really is some sort of recreation of what happened in Alaska, so a clandestine shadow government can do something or other. I'm not really quite sure. But move over, darling, that huge tank thing's gonna get us! And from out of the water arose a huge metal monster, and driving it was a familiar face. "Shut up, you blonde ponce," shouted Ocelot from the Metal Gear Ray. "There's no need for that sort of behaviour," said Mr. Bentendo. "Forget you," replied Ocelot. "I'm going to kill you now, because I have your clone brother's arm on me. And I'll prove that I'm the better clone of Big Boss, even though I really was all along." Or, wait a minute, no. To hell with it. And right then Ocelot fired all missiles at the oil rig and blew Mr. Bentendo to smithereens. After thinking he had been killed a second time, Mr. Bentendo was surprised to find himself alive in a load of jungle undergrowth. "Stay right there," a familiar voice said again. "I've got you again. But because this is the 60s, this is the first time we've ever met," said the young Ocelot. "Now come with me to be tortured for a minute." And with that, Ocelot dragged poor Mr. Bentendo off to his base. And at the base, Mr. Bentendo found himself in a terrible state of affairs. He was all tied up and under the weather as Ocelot smacked him around. Ocelot then picked up a knife. "To tie things up in the storyline, I'm going to poke your eye out now." Just as Mr. Bentendo thought he was about to lose his eye, suddenly, as if by magic, the shopkeeper appeared. "Time to go home, sir." "Good idea," said Mr. Bentendo. "This whole adventure has been rather confusing." And so Mr. Bentendo returned to the changing room and got back into his own clothes and made his own way back home. On the way home, Mr. Bentendo felt something in his pocket. He reached in and pulled out the bandana he was wearing. "I'll keep this with all my other souvenirs," thought Mr. Bentendo, "as a reminder of my adventures. Plus it'll be handy because I live in Hackney now."